Sang-hyo gives Seok-ryu banana milk, even though she doesn't need it anymore. Then Seok-ryu asks about what they are now. And Sang-hyo clarifies what the relationship means after the kiss. Hearing that, Seok-ryu becomes nervous because Sang-hyo suddenly mentions kissing. Then Sang-hyo says that he didn't kiss his friend. Seok-ryu asks Sang-hyo not to mention the word kiss again. It seems like Sang-hyo said that on purpose to tease her. It's clear they're not friends anymore. The 30 years of friendship ended just like that. Then Myung-woo and Noyeon come and are confused to see Seok-ryu panicking looking for Sang-hyo. And Seok-ryu feels like she never acted like that. She just stopped by because she was here, so she thought of contacting Sang-hyo. Myung-woo is still confused why Seok-ryu stopped by a faraway place. And Seok-ryu gets annoyed because they keep asking. Seok-ryu is in a room and then Sang-hyo comes in with clothes for her. Sang-hyo thinks she needs a change of clothes and Seok-ryu feels like she always borrows his clothes. Sang-hyo looks around the room and looks nervous. Then Seok-ryu asks if he's not going. And Sang-hyo asks if Seok-ryu is sure she wants him to go. Because since earlier and now Seok-ryu has been staring at him sharply. Seok-ryu feels like Sang-hyo is just making things up and pushes him to go. Sang-hyo sends a message whether Seok-ryu is asleep yet. It turned out she hadn't slept yet and asked to meet near the tree. Sang-hyo explained he hadn't slept yet because he was reading a book. And Seok-ryu felt happy there. It's too bad she only stayed one night. Then Sang-hyo said she could come again and tomorrow he would accompany her to go home together. He realized it was more important to be with Seok-ryu. Seok-ryu felt happy because Sang-hyo liked her that much. Even though he was 30 years old, Sang-hyo wasn't sick of her. Sang-hyo was always with him and remembered the incident when they were together. When he was 8 years old, Seok-ryu splashed paint on him. When he was 7 years old, Seok-ryu put a tattoo sticker on his face while he was asleep. When he was 6 years old, Seok-ryu gave him a magic candy that made his lips purple and mocked him. And when he was 5 years old, Seok-ryu threw gum in his hair. How could Sang-hyo like her after going through all that suffering? Seok-ryu then leaned on Sang-hyo's shoulder because she was sleepy, maybe because of the long drive. Sang-hyo could only smile and let her fall asleep on his shoulder. Moim took the interview test for the position of paramedic at the South Pole Research Station. They asked why Moim wanted to go to Antarctica. Since childhood, Moim wanted to be Superman, then wanted to be Spider-Man. She realized that she couldn't join the Korean Fire Brigade, but she was very satisfied with her job. She could help others and she wanted to go to Antarctica to explore the unknown world and maintain world peace. Mr. Choi was at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs office to meet his wife's friend. He thanked him for telling him about his wife the other day. Then Mr. Choi emphasized that Hae-suk was his wife and his property. He shouldn't have acted like that to his wife, so don't seduce her. His feelings for his wife will not change because he loves his wife. Then Hae-suk came and called his friend honey. He explained that they were just friends. But Mr. Choi felt strange because his wife called him honey. They explained that they were just friends and have no feelings for each other. But Mr. Choi didn't believe it. There was no way he would like his beautiful and smart wife. Then his friend admitted that he was gay and liked men. Hearing that, Mr. Choi immediately closed his mouth.
진짜.
Mrs. Hae-suk felt very embarrassed by her husband's behavior. She asked her husband to keep his distance from her. How could her husband doubt her? Then Mr. Choi apologized because his wife didn't tell him, so he misunderstood. She couldn't possibly reveal her friend's secret. Because he was uncomfortable living in a conservative and rigid society like this. Mr. Choi felt that his wife was very cool. Sang-hyo felt that Seok-ryu was too much because she kept driving without taking a break. This should have been a date and let Sang-hyo drive his car, but Seok-ryu felt that she had to return Mo-im's car immediately. Then Mrs. Misak came and they were confused to give an explanation. It turned out that her mother invited Seok-ryu to a blind date. Of course, Sang-hyo was very surprised to hear that. Seok-ryu really objected to her mother's idea. And then Mo-im was already behind them. The three of them entered Sang-hyo's office and Mo-im saw the facilities in the office. Sang-hyo invited Mo-im to try his massage chair. Then she said that her car had just returned and that meant Seok-ryu was staying overnight. Are they dating now? They immediately explained that even though Seok-ryu was staying overnight, they slept in separate places. And after being pressed by Mo-im, they admitted that they're dating. Hearing that, Mo-im felt very happy and congratulated them. Seok-ryu was confused why she was happy knowing they were dating. That's because Mo-im was almost frustrated and had guessed that they would end up together. Then they wondered why Mo-im was wearing a uniform and looked cool. She then told them that she had just taken an interview and passed for a position at the South Pole. And that meant she was going far away. Dan-ho picked up Yeon-do while she was waiting for him with Mo-im. When she saw her father, Yeon-do immediately hugged him. And Dan-ho thanked Mo-im for taking care of his daughter. Then Mo-im asked Dan-ho to take leave tomorrow and meet tomorrow at 10. She left and asked Dan-ho to obey her and not ask questions. And don't wear a mudman shirt. Sang-hyo asked if Seok-ryu was going on a blind date. Of course, Seok-ryu will find a reason to reject it. Then Sang-hyo gives an idea to tell them that they are dating. He is afraid that it will happen again, so it is better to ask for their approval. But Seok-ryu rejects it, because they just started dating. There is a little problem, because their mothers are friends and they are all very close. Seok-ryu feels she doesn't know what will happen to them too, and Sang-hyo agrees to hide their relationship. Finally, Mo-im, Dan-ho and Yeon-do go on vacation together. It turns out they went camping together and enjoyed the fun together. When Dan-ho finished drying Yeon-do's hair, he said that Mo-im's hair was also wet. Then Mo-im dried her own hair and Dan-ho saw Mo-im's shirt. Then he gave his shirt to Mo-im. The sun was almost setting, but Yeon-do was still asleep, so they would go home in 30 minutes. Mo-im thought how nice it would be if she became Yeon-do's mother. Dan-ho was surprised to hear that and felt it was an excessive. Mo-im knew that all of that was very fast, but that was her feeling now. Her heart beats every time she sees Dan-ho. She even sees Dan-ho in her dreams. And their kiss wasn't a mistake. But Dan-ho feels that Yeon-do can't be her daughter and that day's incident was a mistake, because it's impossible. He would be grateful if Mo-im didn't play with Yeon-do anymore. After Mrs. Hae-seok did a checkup, it turned out it wasn't Alzheimer's. What she experienced was a kind of short-term memory loss. Because she had been experiencing shock or stress lately and that increased her anxiety. If she rests and takes care of herself, then Mrs. Hae-seok will be fine. Hearing that, she felt very relieved. Sok-ryu had just finished cooking class and called Sang-hyo. She would bring her cooking to Sang-hyo's office. But Sang-hyo was working and asked her to come tonight. Sok-ryu thought that night meant dark and no one.
그렇겠니?
When night fell, Sok-ryu came to Sang-hyo's office, but there were still many people there. Sok-ryu was surprised and Tae-hui was there too. Then the food that Sok-ryu brought was served on the table. And Myung-woo felt that Sok-ryu must have wanted to congratulate Sang-hyo to celebrate the launch of his collaboration with Tae-hui's company. Actually, Tae-hui planned to go home, but Myung-woo forbade her. And then she said goodbye and congratulated Sok-ryu for officially starting cooking. Sok-ryu also thanks to Tae-hui.
조심해서 가.
It turns out that Sang-hyo sent a message to Sok-ryu that tonight is not right, but Sok-ryu just saw it. Why didn't Sang-hyo tell her about his success? Did he think Sok-ryu wouldn't understand him? Sang-hyo just apologized because he had no reason. Tae-hui came not because she wanted to, but was forced by Myung-woo. Then Sok-ryu was curious whether Sang-hyo told her that they were dating. And Sang-hyo answered no, because he thought Sok-ryu didn't want anyone to know. According to Sok-ryu, Sang-hyo and Tae-hui are like Hollywood actors who can work with their ex. Because they were once happy together, their feelings don't just disappear. But Sang-hyo convinced Sok-ryu that it was in the past. Sok-ryu discussed what he had done with Tae-hui. And Sang-hyo didn't want to discuss it, he also didn't have to tell her about it.
왜 이러냐 진짜.
Sang-hyo's mother brought a suitcase and was ready to leave for Seoraksan Mountain. She will stay with her husband and also Sok-ryu's parents. But his father brought a lot of stuff because he was worried that his wife's ankle had not healed. While together with Mo-im, suddenly Sok-ryu asked to call her cell phone. And her cell phone rang and worked properly good. It turns out that Sang-hyo is still hesitant to contact Sok-ryu. Sok-ryu tells Mo-im about the previous incident. That she asked how Sang-hyo was when he dated Tae-hui, but he didn't want to answer. Mo-im became curious why Sok-ryu wanted to know about his past. Because Sok-ryu will only hurt herself. When Sok-ryu said she felt jealous, Mo-im suddenly got angry. Because previously Sang-hyo was kind enough to ask her say goodbye to Hyun-jun, so don't do that. But Sok-ryu can't control her feelings. Tae-hui gives gifts to Myung-woo and Sang-hyo. Myung-woo is very happy to be given a gift in the form of a teapot and cup that she made. While Sang-hyo is given a gift of her handicraft. There is a message for him that says, the bride and groom use a gourd that is cut in half to share the ceremonial wine. It is said that it is a symbol of a perfect couple for each other. This is my gift for you and Sok-ryu, may you be happy. Sok-ryu sees Sang-hyo, who is preparing food for the cat. Sok-ryu feels strange when Sang-hyo says that he is a boyfriend who is not cold-hearted. And Sang-hyo is confused. If he is not her boyfriend, then what is he? Sok-ryu just felt awkward saying the word boyfriend. It turns out that Sok-ryu used to pick up a sick cat, even though he was allergic to cat fur. Then Sang-hyo made a design for the cat's house, because Sok-ryu couldn't keep the cat in the house. And Sang-hyo really made a house for the cat and continued to reconstruct it. Sang-hyo felt that the cat that used the cage was a descendant of the cat they used to know, because the fur pattern was the same. Sok-ryu couldn't see because of her allergy. She liked cats, but couldn't touch. The cat's house was the first house that Sang-hyo made. He was very proud because he made a house for a living creature. Sang-hyo felt that at that time he wanted to be an architect and his first client was Suk-ryu. He made it because Suk-ryu was worried about the cat. Because Sang-hyo wanted Suk-ryu to be happy. Suddenly, Sang-hyo's stomach growled and then Suk-ryu asked him to eat. It turned out that her mother cooked a pot of soup before leaving, so Suk-ryu asked Sang-hyo to eat it. Suk-ryu apologized for the other day, but Sang-hyo feels like he caused it, so he apologizes. Seeing Sang-hyo and Tae-hui together makes her petty and childish. Sang-hyo promises not to hide anything and not to get involved with her again. Sang-hyo is happy to see her jealous, but it hurts to fight with her. This is the first time he can't focus and is frustrated. He doesn't want to be someone who is eaten away by the relationship. One thing is for sure, Suk-ryu makes his heart warm. Hearing that, Suk-ryu is a bit nervous and asks him to finish his food then read the comic that she borrowed in her room. Suk-ryu smiles seeing Sang-hyo, who is clingy as if he just entered her room. She borrows a princess comic series for Sang-hyo. Even though at that time Sang-hyo was just making it up, he went to the library so he could meet her. But Suk-ryu feels like Sang-hyo is not interested in her. Sang-hyo doesn't look at her eyes and acts indifferent. He treats Suk-ryu worse than before they dated. That's because Sang-hyo is very nervous. He waits very long, but when Suk-ryu is by his side, his mind is blank, he doesn't know what to do. Suk-ryu thinks Sang-hyo is very calm. She thinks that after dating, Sang-hyo doesn't find her attractive anymore. So Suk-ryu feels restless and upset. Because Sang-hyo really likes Suk-ryu, he is confused about how to treat her. Sang-hyo will read the comic below, but then Suk-ryu asks if he doesn't want to read it here. Sang-hyo don't think so, because he thinks badly. Thoughts that he shouldn't think, cheap and naughty thoughts, and unhealthy thoughts. But Suk-ryu likes unhealthy food, so please think badly. Then Sang-hyo asks what about bad deeds. Suk-ryu answers that he can do that. Then the two of them kiss in Suk-ryu's room. How will their story goes? The story of their relationship is getting sweeter and it's a shame to miss it. See you again in episode 13.